mid-December. A fresh message heavier than code. Remember the 11th of September 2001. If your house is near, you'd better leave. A film that wasn't supposed to matter suddenly matters too much. The editor's hands hover. The clock says Monday. The building says midnight. The FBI says North Korea. Their sanctions appear on New Year's paper. Names like the Reconnaissance General Bureau land on lists that make money move slower. Rebuilds are blunt instruments. You don't disinfect a wiper, you bury it and birth anew. Old images come out of the freezer. New domains stand up. EDR takes the inner walls. Two-factor becomes the price of entry. Employees line up with laptops like patients waiting for antifreeze to flush from their veins. Insurance adjusters do math. Investigators do interviews. Attorneys do attorney. The unofficial costs dwarf the official ones. Delayed projects, reputations nicked by email autopsies. The same fingerprints surface in new theaters. A central bank hears its own money whisper out the side door. Swift messages it didn't draft. At hospital screens locked under a global banner named WannaCry. Code, it reaches for a domain that never belonged to them. It's dormant, set to wake on a date already past. In IR, what if can be a form of PTSD. In a dingy conference room at 2 a.m., with fans rattling and stale pizza whiteboxing the table, an employee whispers into their hands, "I wasn't hired to fight a country." No one laughs. They aren't
I wasn't
either.
hired to fight
But
a
that's the
country.
job now.
The following content is based on real-world events and publicly available cybersecurity reports. While dramatized for educational purposes, it does not intend to identify or defame any person or organization. The suite is dark. A final color pass glows on the screen. Faces, laughter, a joke on a dictator. Then the laughter cuts. The cursor freezes. Fans whir down like a plane losing power. Monitors blink to black. A red skull blooms. A voice on the speakers whispers.
We've obtained all your internal data.
The editor's hands hover. The clock says Monday, the building says midnight. You're tuned in to Decoding Cybersecurity. I am Rakesh Nayam, taking you inside the day a movie studio became the set, the prop, and the victim. Chapter 1. The Phantom Credentials. The First Click.
It starts months earlier where most modern heists begin, the inbox. A neat email lands with the casual authority of routine. Apple ID verification required. Clean logo, blue button, good grammar. A little urgency to stand it up. An assistant clicks. A login page loads, pixel perfect, credentials are offered. The page thanks them. Somewhere far away, a terminal chirps, valid. Reconnaissance follows. The attackers parse org charts, mine email threads, collect VPN portals, OWA paths, SSO touchpoints. They spray what they've stolen where it might fit, VPN, webmail, Citrix. When passwords collide, credential reuse becomes a skeleton key. A foothold lands on a workstation with just enough privilege to see the neighborhood. They drop a lightweight backdoor, beacon intervals jitter to blend with human use. They pull whoami, ipconfig, netview. They taste the domain and lick the salt of SMB shares.
Chapter 2. The Quiet Occupation, the Lateral Creep. A beachhead becomes a campsite. They pivot with what the network gives them. Poorly segmented subnets, service accounts with broad rights, local admin passwords cloned like twins across machines. Pass the hash opens one system, remote service creation opens another. PsExec hums, WMI whispers, no exotic zero-day, just the gravity of convenience. A help desk image repository offers gold, old builds, cached credentials, scripts with hard-coded admin paths. They harvest ntds.tt from a spare domain controller snapshot. Offline cracking works while coffee cools. Now comes persistence. Scheduled tasks named like housekeeping, driver telemetry, index rebuilder, registry run, keys tucked under friendly GUIDs. A proxy tool to bounce traffic through one compromised host to the next. The C2 domains look like weather widgets and image CDNs. When they reach domain admin, the tone shifts. Mapping explodes outward. They inventory file servers, contracts, HR folders, payroll exports, film screeners. They compress with names meant to be ignored. Textures 2013 .rar, render cache.zip. They timestamp copies to match the originals. They stage data on internal jumpers, then exfiltrate to disposable servers leased far from Culver City. They don't rush, not yet. Trivia challenge question. Which tradecraft most accurately describes destructive malware that overwrites the master boot record to render systems unbootable? A. Keylogging persistence. B. Credential stuffing. C. Wiper with MBR overwrite. D. DNS tunneling. Hold your answer. We'll reveal it near the end and tie it back to the moment everything went dark. Chapter 3, The Public Execution, The Leak Week.
November 24th, 2014. The music stops. Employee screens glow with a red skull and a headline from strangers. Guardians of Peace. Drives begin to vanish. The MBR, the tiny map that tells a machine how to start, gets chewed into static. Editors yank plugs, IT yanks entire floors. Then the second act leaks. Unreleased films, pristine rips, spill onto the high seas of torrent land. Inbox archives follow. PST files split open like fruit. Private banter becomes public spectacle. Executive snark becomes tabloid oxygen. The web feast then shames itself in the same breath. On a whiteboard, an IR lead writes 3 words: contain, eradicate, recover, then circles recover 4 times. Because this isn't data theft, it's data murder.
Chapter 4, The Threatened Screen, The 9/11 Email. Mid-December. A fresh message heavier than code. Remember the 11th of September 2001? If your house is near, you'd better leave. Theaters flinch. Chains pull the interview. Commentators howl. Free speech becomes a trending hashtag. Inside the studio, the decision clock beats like a siren. Security, legal, business, fear. Then a counter message from the homeland. No credible intelligence of an active plot against US theaters. The heat drops half a notch. The studio rethreads the release plan. Limited screens, VOD on Christmas. The comedy designed to poke a regime now becomes a referendum on whether intimidation gets to edit art. A film that wasn't supposed to matter suddenly matters too much. Chapter 5, The Attribution Game. The Smoking IP. A week after the skull, a podium. The FBI says North Korea. Their case: code overlaps with earlier campaigns, infrastructure reuse, and the human flaw: operational sloppiness. For a few fatal moments, the attackers touch Sony systems without a proxy, leaking IP blocks tied to the wrong flag. Add intelligence from elsewhere, eyes already inside DPRK networks, and the confidence grows teeth. The White House speaks of a proportional response. Sanctions appear on New Year's paper. Names like the Reconnaissance General Bureau land on lists that make money move slower. In a war room, a forensics lead draws the kill chain on glass. Spearfish with convincing Apple ID resets password theft. VPN OWA access foothold. Lateral movement via PsExec WMI SMB credential dumping domain admin. Data staging KISA RAR ZIP with timestamp exfil to proxy infra. Wiper deployment Destover style pushed with admin creds or GPO, overwriting MBR, deleting files, destroying shadow copies. Psychological ops, emails, threats to amplify damage. You can erase computers in minutes. Erasing the narrative takes years. Chapter 6, The Aftermath Ledger, The Cost of Breathing Again. Rebuilds are blunt instruments. You don't disinfect a wiper, you bury it and birth anew. Gold images come out of the freezer, new domains stand up, EDR takes the inner walls. Two-factor becomes the price of entry. Employees line up with laptops like patients waiting for antifreeze to flush from their veins.
Slower than the old system.
Insurance adjusters do math. Investigators do interviews. Attorneys do attorney. The unofficial costs dwarf the official ones. Delayed projects, reputations nicked by email autopsies, talent spooked, partners suddenly fond of security addenda. And there's the quiet shrapnel. Families who now monitor credit like a hobby because somewhere in a paste dump their SSNs and birthdays are immortal. Chapter 7: The Lazarus Encore. The twist you missed. You think it ends with sanctions and a Christmas VOD. Twist, it was a pilot episode. The same fingerprints surface in new theaters. A central bank hears its own money whisper out the side door. Swift messages it didn't draft. A cursor moving by itself in the dead of night. A year after that, hospital screens lock under a global banner named WannaCry. Code cousins, infrastructure cousins, tradecraft cousins. Back in the studio, weeks after the dust settles, an engineer runs a script against scheduled tasks as a last box ticking exercise. One entry doesn't smell right. Index rebuilder legacy. It reaches for a domain that never belonged to them. It's dormant, set to wake on a date already past. They catch the sleeper before it phones home. Maybe it would have done nothing. Maybe it was a second wiper, time-bombed as a spiteful Encore. In IR, what if can be a form of PTSD. Now, remember the trivia? We've asked which tradecraft most accurately describes destructive malware that overwrites the master boot record to render systems unbootable. A. Keylogging persistence. B. Credential stuffing. C. Wiper with MBR overwrite. D. DNS tunneling. And the correct answer is C. Wiper with MBR overwrite. The Sony attackers didn't just take, they silenced. By corrupting the MBR and shredding file systems, they turned fast silicon into heavy paperweights and forced the studio to rebuild the act, not just the set. Chapter 8: The Incident Blueprint, Step by Step for the Geeks. Initial access. Spear phishing with single sign-on Apple ID lures. Victims enter creds on a cloned portal, creds relayed to real services by the attackers to validate. Credential stuffing across OWA VPN. Eventual success yields a beachhead. Privilege escalation and lateral. Enumerate domain, net group, domain admins, domain NL test, DC list. Drop a backdoor with jittered beacons, exfil basic host info. Use pass the hash on systems with local admin reuse. PsExec WMI to fan out. Harvest credentials via LSAS scraping, crack offline where possible. Land DA via weekly protected service accounts or exposed admin sessions. Staging and exfil. Identify file servers, contracts, HR, finance, media screeners. Compress with RAR HP, password protected archives. Timestamp to blend, split volumes. Move to mid-tier internal hosts. Egress to proxy servers in third countries using HTTPS on TCP 443 to blend. Destruction. Push wiper components using DA creds or GPO startup scripts. Wiper overwrites MBR, deletes files, and disables shadow copies. Some variants reboot to a dead disk screen. Display ransom-style PR splash to amplify fear and attention. Psychops and pressure. Time threat emails to theaters and media. Select press drops of stolen emails to inflame internal conflicts and public shaming. Goal, coercion, shape release decisions, project power beyond raw code. Attribution factors, conceptual. Code overlap with prior DPRK-linked campaigns. Infrastructure reuse. OPSEC mistakes exposing source IP blocks. Intelligence visibility upstream. Public names that later align with bigger arcs. Lazarus, Zinc, Hidden Cobra. Chapter 9. The Cyber Pro Breakdown. How you don't become next. 1. Rotate the fish pretext and inoculate often. Don't run one flavor of simulation forever. Cycle SSO resets, Apple Google ID prompts, parcel delivery, HR portals, Debrief clicks without blame. Make hover verify out-of-band muscle memory. 2. Shrink the blast radius with tiered admin and just-in-time. No standing domain admins. Use privileged access workstations, just-in-time elevation, and separate local admin passwords laps across endpoints to blunt past the hash. 3. Watch east-west, not just north-south. Deploy sensors that see PsExec, WMI, lateral movement, anomalous SMB browsing, and mass ACL reads. Behavioral detections beat brittle hashes. 4. Control the exits. Egress filtering with DNS logging, TLS inspection where lawful, and allow lists for outbound destinations. Alerts on large archive exfil, RAR, ZIP volumes, multi-part patterns over unusual destinations. 5. Prepare for a wiper like it's Tuesday. Keep immutable offline backups, test bare metal restores quarterly, keep gold images warm, script domain recreation and EDR redeploy, practice paper-based comms for the day email dies. 6. Make identity noisy for attackers. MFA everywhere, push fatigue protections, phish-resistant tokens for admin paths, short Kerberos ticket lifetimes, conditional access that treats unmanaged devices as guilty until proven clean. 7. Tabletop with legal and PR at the table. Coercive ops attack your narrative. Rehearse release pivots, theatrical, POD, press posture, and law enforcement handoffs. Security is not just a tech problem, it's a storytelling problem under stress. Chapter 10, The Last Line, The Human Weight. In a dingy conference room at 2 a.m., with fans rattling and stale pizza whiteboxing the table, an employee whispers into their hands, "I wasn't hired to fight a country."
I wasn't hired to fight
No
a
one
country.
laughs. They aren't either. But that's the job now. For studios, for hospitals, for you. This is Decoding Cybersecurity. I'm Rakesh. If this breakdown helped, subscribe, tap the bell, and binge the playlist of real hacks told like thrillers. And hey, before you go, hover over that next link, check the sender, and if it smells wrong, don't make the first click.